And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gents. This is boy Casanova from Orlando, Florida, on this awesome and international podcast, Good Wine and Great Laughs, the podcast for wine lovers and hot topics, ladies and gents. Welcome to Casa Casanova. I'm Casanova, ladies and gents. And if you are new to my YouTube channel, that's what I do every Saturday morning. I always have the wine of the day. I'm going to open this wine shortly. I'm going to sip, drink a little bit, give some information about the wine that's reported and that's written on the back label. And also I give a score between 1 to 10 to let know how I like it or if I don't like the wine. Most of the wines that I have is always the new wine that I never had in my entire life. That's what makes it excited. And then followed by the topic of the day, and sometimes I play 1, 2, or maybe 3 videos related to the topic of the day. And at the end, I will give my 2 cents related to the topic of the day, what I'm thinking about. And the topic of the day, ladies, it's always topics that can affect our lives directly or indirectly, ladies and gents. So if you love wine and if you like hot topics, this YouTube channel is for you. So if you like the work that I do, I appreciate if you click on the like button, click on the subscribe button, and share this video and any other videos that you watch on my YouTube channel for all your family and friends. I appreciate your support, ladies and gents. And today is Saturday, November the 30th, 2024, and the weather here in Orlando will be with the sunshine and cloud mixed. Highs of 69 and lows of 51 degrees, ladies and gents. And before I start talking about the topic of the day, let's see what this wine of the day is all about. And I do not wrap this up, ladies and gents. When I was in the store looking for wine of the day, this wine came just like that. So let's see what this wine is all about. Ooh la la. Put the tape right here. All right, this is the wine that's from Portugal, ladies and gents, and it's called Quid Pro Quo. And according to the wine enthusiasts, given a rate of 90%. That's good. All right, I'm putting my glasses right here. The front label states that Quid Pro Quo is a vinho regional alentejano, or in Portuguese, is a red blend. This brand is called the Casa Santos Lima House, and is a medium dry red wine. Is a vintage of 2021, and according to the label in the back, it says Quid Pro Quo is a classic and ancient Latin expression that refers to a simple exchange of what this for that. However, popularly, it is also used with another meaning. The time spent to appreciate this exquisite Alentejano wine is quickly compensated by the sensorial experience it provides. Produced with the region's typical grape varieties, it shows a deep violet color with rich and ripe red fruits aromas. A very well balanced wine that offers a long and nice aftertaste. Let me see here, the alcohol percent of this wine is 14%, contains sulfites, ladies and gents. It has like the website right here for Quinta da Boa Vista, Portugal, and is imported by Tree Vins Imports from New Rochelle, New York. All right. So let me see what the Quid Pro Quo is all about. And a picture of this wine bottle, ladies, that's going to be available on all my social medias for you to take a look at it. And if you want to try it, it's up to you. And do me a favor, ladies, if you ever try any of the wines I present here, come back to this YouTube channel or one of my social medias and post, make a comment, and let me know what you think. You maybe love it, you may hate it. It's a love and hate relationship with different wines. So let's see what the Quid Pro Quo is all about. Okay. Definitely dry. Say medium dry right here. I do like, ladies and this wine is not sweet. So once again, let me make this disclaimer here. If you like sweet red wine, this wine is not, you're not about this life. You are not about this life, ladies and gents. But for those that like semi-dry wine or dry wine, I would say probably, excuse me, probably you will like it, this wine. Well, I will give an 8 for this wine, and there's a reason for that, ladies, because I know for sure if I'm not keep drinking a wine and the water right after, one glass of wine, one glass of water to balance, I know for sure that later on I'm going to have a very dry taste in the middle of the night in my mouth, and I hate that. So to compensate that is the best way to do, and to avoid the taste of dryness in your mouth later on in the day, whatever the time of the day you drink the wine, make sure you compensate the same amount of wine that you drink right after the same amount of water, for two reasons. You're going to avoid this dryness in your mouth, of course, later on, and also you're not going to feel like the huge buzz, not going to be drunk and be wasted. Okay? In my case, it's not going to give me a headache later in the day, ladies and gents. So once again, the picture is going to be available on all my social medias for you to take a look at. So let's talk about the topic of the day. Today is once again season 9, episode 18, and the topic is Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, Ayanna Pressley, and Summer Lee. I salute you. This is a tribute of some information that happened in Congress this past, I believe, a week and a half right now. And definitely, I have nothing but respect for these three ladies. I give credit to Roland Unfiltered about the videos that you're going to watch while I keep drinking this wine. So, enough talking. It is show time.
Capitol Hill, y'all, they were dealing with the issue of DEI, and let me tell you something. Two of the black women on this panel were not having any of it. First up, here is Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett of Texas, bringing the funk.
So many of you know that I practice law, but some of you don't realize that I actually was a business major out of Rhodes College in Memphis, Tennessee. And the emphasis that I got in my business degree was on finance. And as I traveled the country campaigning this election cycle, one of the things that I talked about was this idea that in finance, we always promote this idea of diversity. If you know anything about a portfolio, the one thing that you want to do is make sure that it's as diverse as possible, because at times certain stocks will perform better than others, and they will exemplify various strengths and weaknesses. And together, a diverse portfolio is usually what any good finance person would promote. They wouldn't promote that you solely invest in vanilla wafers, believing that that is going to be the strongest portfolio, but instead they may want to add some chocolate cake and some Twinkies into the mix to make sure that we have the best portfolio, because there will be different preferences by different people, and again, there will be different strengths. But as I sit here and I think about what we say and what I'm hearing, as it relates to diversity when it comes to anything outside of making money. And to be clear, we are losing GDP every time we try to push back on this idea of diversity, because all of us bring something different to the table. But you consistently said over and over the word oppression, and every time that you said it, it was almost as if I was hearing nails on a chalkboard, because it seems like you don't understand the definition of oppression, and I'd ask you to just refer to Google to help you out. Oppression is the prolonged, cruel, or unjust treatment or control. That is the definition of oppression. And so as I sit here as a black woman who practiced civil rights, let me tell you, the reason that my colleagues wanted to make sure you understood the same black history that your side of the aisle wants to delete out of classrooms is because you can then misuse words like oppression. There has been no oppression for the white man in this country. You tell me which white men were dragged out of their homes. You tell me which one of them got dragged all the way across an ocean and told that you are going to go and work. We are going to steal your wives. We are going to rape your wives. That didn't happen. That is oppression. We didn't ask to be here. We're not the same migrants that y'all constantly come up against. We didn't run away from home. We were stolen. So yeah, we are going to sit here and be offended when you want to sit here and act like, and don't let it escape you that it is white men on this side of the aisle telling us, people of color on this side of the aisle, that y'all are the ones being oppressed, that y'all are the ones that are being harmed. That's not the definition of oppression. You tell me the prolonged, cruel, or unjust treatment that you've had, and we can have a conversation.
You could start with Exodus.
The final thing that I will say on this particular issue, two things. There is an article from The Guardian, and it is a little old. It's from 2021, so I apologize. But it said that back then, just 3 years ago, white men represent 30% of the population, but 62% of office holders. These are the issues that we are constantly looking at and recognizing and trying to say, is this just? I can't even tell you how many white men have served in this chamber, but I can tell you that I am only the 55th black woman to be elected to Congress. And so when you want to talk about history and pretend as if it was so long ago, it wasn't. Because again, I am just number 55. Finally, when we start to talk about what do these numbers do, as we're trying to say the diversity, equity, and inclusion is the problem, the reality is that when it comes to financial performance, companies with more diverse workforces are more likely to outperform their competitors. Companies in the top quartile for racial diversity are 35% more likely to outperform their peers on profitability. Companies with diverse executive teams are 25% more likely to generate greater profits. Diverse companies earn 2.5 times higher cash flow per employee. Diversity works. And until you can show me data that says otherwise, I think that we need to go back to being a country that listens to experts and gets out of our feelings and recognizes, again, that racism is real in this country. And until we stop pretending that it's not, we will not solve the problems that we are consistently facing. And that will bring real unity that we seek when we're looking for a more perfect union.
Preach, my sister!
Congresswoman Summer Lee, she said, I want some of that.
I'm not in favor of the Dismantle Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Act, or what it maybe would more aptly be called the dismantling any semblance of support or opportunity for certain American acts. We know who those Americans are. Americans who have not enjoyed centuries of unfair advantages by keeping others enslaved or segregated or disenfranchised or incarcerated or redlined or gerrymandered or excluded by law. Americans who've lived with disabilities or had their relationships criminalized or their gender expression demonized. If we're being honest here, this bill, which will wipe out every diversity, equity, and inclusion program in our federal agencies, plus those those who contract with us, plus those who receive grant money, plus our schools, is nothing new. This is just the final piece of a decades-long obsession with targeting and dismantling anything that might give marginalized people a fair shot, including DEI programs, which honestly started the second the Civil Rights Act passed. Policies like affirmative action and diversity, equity, inclusion are the closest things we've had to the mythical bootstraps that some of my colleagues insist historically and currently harmed communities need to pick themselves up by. After centuries of efforts to keep us out of schools and universities, from jobs and elected office, Republicans targeting these policies are no accident. Why do predominantly conservative white men believe that the success of a black person or the opportunity or access of a black person is an existential threat to them? DEI is not given any unfair advantage that society itself does not already confer on certain Americans. It merely exists to ensure that all other people, that women, minoritized folks, queer folks, disabled folks, have the same opportunities to succeed and thrive in our workforce and our schools as people who have not had those opportunities systematically and legally stripped from them do. Is our country not greater when all of us have opportunities to succeed and contribute and survive? Our success and our survival as a nation is bound together. Diversity, equity, and inclusion programs only exist to band-aid over decades, hell, centuries of discrimination against people's skin color, their religion, disabilities, gender, or sexual orientations, you name it. Contrary to Republican conjecture, remedying past discrimination is not, in turn, a discrimination. And we're not going to sit here and pretend racism is over just because one black person on the Supreme Court agreed that it should be. What DEI does not do is give some kind of magical pass to better jobs, like some of our colleagues are implying. That middle word, equity, does not mean more than or better than. It means treating people fairly and impartially. It means working to fix generational and systemic discrimination to the betterment of all of us and all of our institutions. But instead, Republicans are trying to bastardize the term DEI to be a slur. When Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson was up for confirmation and when Vice President Harris was added to the ticket, they called them DEI hires. They want you to believe that a Harvard graduate with over 20 years of experience, who happens to be a black woman, is not qualified, but a Fox News personality is qualified to run the Department of Defense, and the WWE executive is qualified to run the Department of Education. Let's be real. There is an attempt to create a direct correlation between our race, being a black person, and our qualifications. So much as to say that there is no way to be a black woman. There is no resume that a black person could have that would qualify them unless that black person is a Republican, and there is a quota there. And while all of this is happening at the top level of our government, I can promise you these same things are happening on every single level of government and private sector. But those people don't have a national platform to speak out against discriminatory treatment. Where is a federal worker supposed to turn when another coworker says a racist comment to them in the break room? Where is the same-sex couple who is denied housing supposed to, because of their relationship, supposed to turn? Where is a pregnant woman who was fired for being pregnant supposed to go? Often the only place that they have to give them recourse are the diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. These folks just want to do their jobs, serving the American people in an environment that feels safe and supports them. Making work a better, safer environment for some does not mean it automatically is worse for others. And those complaining about DEI training are probably the ones who need it the most. My Republican colleagues have got to stop punching down on already marginalized communities and face their own fears of a level playing field privately. It's shameful. I yield back.
See, that's what I'm talking about.
Right.
Why you gotta have black representation in the room.
Let me tell you something, man. I wish them sisters had a campaign donation button up when they were speaking. We have to stand up when we see people not just speaking truth to power, but you know, we cannot continue to allow the types of things that are happening to continue without being vocal. And I think one thing about this group, this platform I'm sharing with you all and with our other speakers is we're seeing this happening in real time. And there was a time in my generation, I'm 45. There was a time in my generation that a lot of us were like, we don't see how they could have did this in 1968, or they wouldn't have hit me like this when I was crossing the Edmund-Pettus. This is our 1968. This is our time to not just sit in the corner idly by. We have too many brilliant minds coming out of Howard and Clark, Atlanta, Morehouse, Spelman, Florida A&M. We can no longer stand idly by while they are doing these. under the threat that they're just going to happen. So I actually am not only proud of what those sisters said, I'm not only proud of how they stood there, but I hope they inspired people around them to do the same, because as you heard the second sister, Ms. Summer Lee, when she mentioned about the qualifications, we're acting as if we haven't been disrespected in the sense of being overqualified. Heck, Michelle Obama was the most decorated, educated, degree-having first lady in the history of our country, yet and still there were questions about her qualifications as a first lady. So when we see these things happening to Vice President Harris or to our sister that sits on the Supreme Court, Justice Brown, we have to step up and stop allowing them to dumb it down and accept it as if it's normal.
Well said.
Yeah, look, Roland, I mean, the past few weeks have been really hard for a lot of Democrats, including myself. But, hearing these clips, I feel a lot of hope about the future of our party because of young leaders like Congresswoman Lee and Congresswoman Crockett. And if I could speak just about Jasmine Crockett for a minute, no one says it quite like she does. I think she's one of the most effective communicators and messengers that we have in the entire Democratic Party. I'm really excited that a lot of people got to know her and got to see her and hear her during this campaign cycle at the DNC, where I was on the speechwriting team, as you know, Roland, and on this very show. I remember, Roland, on the first day of early voting in Texas, you did an interview with her. And so platforms like these, so important, right, for making sure the American people, including those in our community, know about those leaders who are in these spaces and in these rooms, speaking up about the issues that matter most to our community. I think it's also important to underscore that, Congresswomen Lee, Crockett, and, all those who are in our Congressional Black Caucus, they're not just speaking up about these issues. They're speaking up about the issues that matter most to the American people, whether it's the cost of food, the cost of housing, healthcare access, reproductive freedom. They're on the front lines for so many of these issues that directly impact our communities. And of course, DEI and the attacks that we're seeing are included in that. But our leaders are on the front lines, making sure that our country moves forward on so many issues. And I think with these clips, we're reminded of just how fortunate our community is, and in fact, the American people are, to have representatives, true representatives like Jasmine Crockett and Summer Lee, who are standing up for our community and for the people and against these attacks that MAGA Republicans, again, it's their side that's bringing these attacks that are talking about DEI and all of this. They're the ones who are bringing these attacks, and there are going to be a lot of them over the next 4 years. But I'm so grateful and I'm excited that we have representatives like Summer Lee and Jasmine Crockett. And I know Jasmine Crockett ran for DPCC chair earlier this week. That's the Democratic Policy and Communications Committee. She didn't win, but I'm really excited to see how she and Congresswoman Lee continue to lead and to rise within this party.
I agree.
Scott, there are a lot of people, obviously, who are frustrated, they're sad, they are angry, people talking about giving up, all sorts of stuff like that. And I've had people tell me, I don't understand how you just moved on. I said, well, first of all, I didn't just move on. I said, I know what happened. I said, but what I also realize is there is a tomorrow. And you're looking at two individuals. Republicans right now control the House. They're going to control the Senate. They're going to control the White House after January 20th. And I just got to remind people that there were days when Oscar DePriest, when Ralph Metcalf, when John Conyers, when you had black folks who were in Congress, and they had Adam Clayton Powell, and they were dealing with just straight up hardcore violent racist, and they went to work every day. Right. They went to work every day in the face of Jim Crow segregation. And I think what this generation has to understand is it's now your time. Mm-hmm. And you can either give up, be despondent, be sad, go into a state of depression, or you can fight. And for me, I'm not going to do that bullshit Joe and Mika did. Let's go to Mar-a-Lago and let's do a reset. Hell no. My studio is 2 blocks from the White House. I have absolutely no intention on going to the White House for the next 4 years after January 20th. I'm not going to normalize this administration. I'm not going to sit here and play footsie with this administration. But I need folk to understand that, damn it, there is still a fight to be had because there is still a tomorrow that we must focus on.
Right.
And that's what these two sisters are doing.
Yeah. You know, Roland, I talk to juries for a living at least 3 or 4 times a year. And so when I hear the sisters talk, I'm listening not just for cadence, but substance, eloquence, articulation, and discipline, and no emotion, right? And what bothers me most about those 2 presentations aren't the presentations, but how eloquently they laid out the hypocrisy. And what bothers me is that the hypocrisy that is so clear in the both sides of this issue, why it's not resonating with the majority of Americans. That why don't they get it, or if they get it, they just ignore it. And I'm not talking about just Republicans, I'm talking about independents and Democrats as well. While 50% of America voted for Donald Trump and are endorsing these appointments that are nothing less than embarrassing. You know, I think you're right about, I think about the brothers and sisters, our parents, our grandparents, who fought in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, right? What character or manner of men they were to fight against outright segregation and racial oppression and the Night Riders. You know, I think about your parents who not only on the picket line, but were registered people to vote for the last 30, 40, 50 years. Or my dad and Reverend Singleton and Joliet, Illinois, who were foot soldiers for Martin Luther King, and in the face desegregating education institutions, hospitals, and the government. Let me tell you something. Those were real freedom fighters. We seem like we don't want to fight that much, or there's not that much to fight about. But my father on his deathbed said, we've seen Trump before. We've seen him worse. He talked about Governor Wallace and Bull Connor in Philadelphia. He said, y'all crazy about Trump, but let me tell you something. We've been fighting the same stuff for the last 30, 40, 50 years, or 200 years, if you will. So to the young people and to my generation, load up. We got to ride out. You may not like the fight. You may think that we've gotten past that. But as Professor Glaude says, America's got to face the racism and sexism, misogyny and xenophobia that it is. Not who it wants it to be, not who America wants to be, but who it is. Because this last election showed us who America still is.
Right.
As we try to form this more perfect union, there's a ton more work to do. And we can't do it by ourselves. So you're right. You can be depressed for a day or two, but in the end, you got to get up and get back in the fight, because the fight is real. It's not going away, and it's not going to change. We're not going to win unless it's up to us, unless we do it. So we all have that responsibility.
Yep.
On the House Oversight panel have been given the heat, talking about DEI, Republicans doing their usual nonsense. Well, here's Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley giving her 5 cents in 5 minutes. Of course, Summer Lee and Jasmine Crockett did the same yesterday. We want to show you what Pressley had to say. Check this out.
This bill titled the Dismantling DEI Act is an utter disgrace.
Having sat and read the text in preparation for today's markup, I have yet another example to tell my constituents about the unserious work of the Republican Party. Now, I'll work with anyone serious about progress who wants to center the people who call this country home. This isn't it. The Committee on Oversight has the broadest jurisdiction in the entire House of Representatives to investigate any topic it chooses, but we are debating legislation that denies the sky is blue, water is wet, and racism is real. The major provision of the bill says to ban anything that acknowledges racism. And a few pages later in the exact same bill, there are multiple provisions discussing the presence of racism. This Republican approach is as predictable as it is nonsensical. On one hand, they're saying that racism does not exist. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, they are saying there is rampant reverse racism. Well, how do you reverse something that never existed in the first place? Riddle me that. Now, this Republican policy may have a new name. It's the same old tired game.
Right.
Look, y'all are entitled to your opinions, but not a denial of the facts. Do you all know your history? Do you know American history? The original Constitution counted enslaved individuals as 3/5 of a person. During World War II, the federal government forcibly relocated and incarcerated 110,000 Japanese Americans. The FHA practiced redlining in the 1930s and 60s to deny mortgages to Black Americans, which is why we have a racial wealth gap today. I could go on. The GI Bill, which is supposed to be race neutral, denied access to Black Americans, denying them equal access to education and housing benefits, which is why we do not have generational wealth. Don't talk to me about merit when those Black servicemen fought for our freedoms. And I'd also just like to take a personal note of privilege to say, please keep Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s name out of your mouths. Your perversion of his words and his mission when his children have asked you to stop invoking his name and perverting his work when he was a proud and unapologetic Black man fighting for equality for Black Americans and all marginalized people. So you all are entitled to your opinions, but not a denial of the facts. But I'm not surprised that you would deny American history. What I am, though, is committed. Committed to speaking truth to power, committed to standing up for marginalized communities and vulnerable people, committed to ensuring that everyone has equal opportunity to buy a house, to work a job, to pursue higher education, and to live in a society that is fair and just. A colleague across the aisle invoked the phrase of, we must do everything to stop government-sponsored oppression. Well, I've just enumerated numerous examples, which is exactly why we have legislation and an executive order to reverse this harm. And that is why I'm committed to opposing this bill and urge my colleagues to do the same.
Look, what we are seeing here, Joy, and when I talk about these programs, you're already seeing it. But they're the victims. These white men are so oppressed.
Right.
These white men, we can't get jobs. It is so nonsensical. But here's the other thing. The people who are so pathetic, which is one of the reasons why Vice President Kamala Harris is not president, white women. White women are the greatest beneficiaries of affirmative action and DEI in this country. Yeah. There are white folks walking around today whose mamas and aunts and sisters and cousins who have got grandmamas who've gotten contracts and built businesses off of MWBE. And what people don't understand is if you are a Black woman, they don't count you in the women category. You're counted in the Black category. If you are Latina, you're not counted in the women category. You counted in the Latino Hispanic category. And so that's just a fact. And so it's amazing to me to listen to these white folks. Then they get mad. They're on social media calling Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. Oh my God, she's so ghetto. She's so ghetto, and how dare she? I saw, it was, I think, Jonah Goldberg or someone else said, oh, see, this is the problem right here. This is why Democrats lost. People like this, and maybe it wasn't someone else, but they were complaining about it, and I'm sitting there going, oh, so y'all mad that black folk are calling y'all out on your sheer stupidity. That's literally what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, what we love about Jasmine Crockett, what we love about Congresswoman Pressley is they're telling the truth. Look, the fact of the matter is there are white men out there who can't get jobs, right? We know that salaries have been reducing for American workers over decades. This is why we had an agenda with the Biden-Harris and then hopefully the Harris-Walz administration that would have been working to solve those problems, to restore the American dream. But people's ignorance, their cult following, their, let's face it, racism and misogyny cheated them out of a future in which we all could have shared. We could have seen improvements. Democrats have made mistakes. You're not going to see me defend any of them on tonight. But the fact of the matter is the American people backed the wrong horse. These folks do not care about them. And I don't want to make it just about African Americans, because the fact of the matter is a lot of white people and a lot of women, white women, benefit from these programs. But that's not the narrative we have told. And oftentimes we've made...
Hold on, Joy. Let's be real. Hold on, Joy. No, Joy. We got to be real factual. Not a lot of white women. When it comes to any MWBE program, the group that has the largest share is the women category, and that category should be WW for white women. You show me construction, you show me any city and state, I'm going to show you where women are getting the most contracts, and that's white women. So when they talk about DEI ain't nothing but yesterday's global diversity officer. And before that, it was, again, affirmative action programs. DEI ain't nothing but the grandson, the granddaughter of affirmative action. And white women have benefited from DEI. White women in corporate America. White women in law firms. White women in the medical field, in the dental field. And when it comes to these attacks, these white women are silent.
Of course they are.
They're not just silent. They're actually voting with the other side. I wish they were silent. It's worse than that. I think that for many of them, they've cast their lots with white men. Some of the things, I work in the gender space, a lot of lies that we tell are that, your proximity won't save you. But the fact of the matter is, proximity has saved a lot of white women. So they got the saving of the rest of us who fought for equity programs, right? Got them to where they're almost 50% of the workforce, and some workforces even higher than that. They've been the beneficiary of all the DEI and affirmative action. And now they are willing to sink it for the rest of us when it's no longer convenient for them. They are simply not the allies that we wanted them to be. Maybe we didn't even think they were, but they're never going to be the allies that we need them to be. And that's why I won't be walking in the Women's March. And I know many other Black women feel the same, because we just have not seen that level of engagement with them, that level of reciprocity. They took everything and they gave almost nothing back.
Well, and I think, listen, all of those speeches, Lauren, were great, but I really wish Congresswomen Crockett, Summer Lee, and Ayanna Pressley had turned to every white woman, on the committee and say, are you going to speak up? Because women like you, y'all have benefited from DEI. Y'all are the beneficiaries of DEI. See, I think what has happened, Lauren, is that when it comes to programs like this, we've let white women off the hook.
Right.
Typically, it's black folks who are defending these programs. Nah. We got to call that thing a thing and say, y'all have been benefiting. These white women walking around who go, we don't benefit from affirmative action. Oh, yes, you do. And so it's time to put folk on Front Street, Lauren.
Well, when it comes to black leadership and black politics, and some might call it black misleadership, what we see so often is that we are advocating for a lot of other groups and a lot of other people. We're not really calling out white women, as you just said. We then see press releases from various black organizations and historic black civil rights organizations talking about almost every other group except the one that organization says it stands for, African Americans. I can remember a few years ago, I think it was the Urban League that put out a press release with regard to immigration, the Dreamers. Certainly we've seen several press releases from the NAACP for various other groups, LGBT, et cetera, and so on. And that's all fine if the streets are paved with gold in black communities and everything's perfect in our communities, but it isn't. And when you're only 13 and 14% of the population, it's really important that your leadership is laser focused on some of the bigger issues that you are dealing with. And obviously, when we talk about any sort of opportunity, when we talk about DEI, opportunities for jobs and wealth building, it's really important in the black community the leadership stay focused on that, because that wealth building piece was dismantled, obviously, during our first 300 years in this experience of being in the United States. So knowing all of that, the leadership has to be very focused, whether it's the Congressional Black Caucus, whether it's the NAACP, whether it's the Urban League, or anybody else. And it's very hard to find in a world of corporate control leadership that is brave enough to sort of wave off that corporate control and do what is right for the constituency that you're representing. That is a piece that is not working right now with regard to leadership in the black community. And I think there has to be a major reset with a lot of these groups and I think some members of Congress when it comes to the question of allyship, because we really have no allies. We don't have a lot of groups that come to us and say, we'll help you out with this thing, and we'll put out press releases and we'll make statements, and our leaders will center your problems and your experiences. Our groups do that for other groups, but we don't see it the other way around quite often. So that has been a huge problem that needs to be fixed.
See, Derek, when I talk about putting folk on Front Street, this is how I look at it. Man, maybe I'm just a little bit too radical on this whole thing. So, you're in the Georgia legislature. I would sit here and I would go, how many white women in this body have companies that do businesses with the city, the county, school board, or state? And I would sit here and say, Representative so-and-so, you against DEI? Well, that's interesting, because you should get contracts because you're a woman. That's DEI. So-and-so,
right?
You got $6 million in contracts from this year, from your business. Oh, you are the beneficiary of DEI dollars.
Bring the receipts.
When I was at Texas A&M there, I gave it was a speech communications class, and we had to give a presentation. So I picked affirmative action, and this is what I said. I think maybe was one of the black person in the class, and so I said, how many of you in this class, your mothers, own businesses? And hands went up, and I said, how many of your mothers, to your knowledge, have received city, county, state, federal contracts? Hands went up. I said, congratulations. Affirmative action is paying for your college. Man, these white folks, they were aghast. And I said, oh, I'm sorry. Your mamas are benefiting from affirmative action. Your mamas are getting contracts. They had never had somebody tell them it. See, this is just a moment, as far as I'm concerned, where you got to call folk out and say, yes, you are. Maybe we should come up and use the phrase, say DEI dollars, bowling for DEI dollars. Oh, you got some DEI dollars? You got some DEI dollars,
Right.
you got some DEI dollars. And then use placards and call them out. And then also call out all these women's groups. I would say, matter of fact, I think somebody should, one of these conservative women's groups, go pull a roster and see how many of them have businesses and how do they get contracts and go, man, look at y'all with those DEI dollars.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's how you got to fight and call these folk out.
I agree.
You know, Roland, I think all of Trump hires are DEI hires.
Absolutely.
They all white men, right? I do agree that we need to call them out. Because here's the thing though, Roland, and I know you here in Atlanta with us, they don't use the term DEI for them. They use the word legacy, Roland. Your legacy. So you go to Harvard for free because of legacy. You go to Yale for free, your legacy. They don't use the same vernacular. Listen, since last year, Roland, over 30 states have implemented some form of DEI law to either restrict any form of DEI. 30 states. So what do you think is going to happen come January? In fact, 2 days ago, Roland, Trump used the word reparation. He's going to give 3 million white men reparations. He said that's their reparation for those blacks who went to HBCUs. So we do need to call them out, but it requires political courage. Roland, you know as well as I'm in Georgia, the largest black caucus in the United States. What will we do in this manner to do exactly what you just called for us to do? Call folks out, call some of my colleagues who are white women and say, you are receiving dollars. They won't do that, Roland. You know that and I know that, because they don't want to exercise political courage to get that done.
That's sad.
Well, again, I just think that if you want to expose people for their hypocrisy, you got to call them by name. You got to name check them. You got to expose them, and you got to say, "Oh, look at Miss DEI dollars. Oh, she hates DEI, but she gets contracts because she's a woman." Baby, that's called good old affirmative action. I'm just saying that's what maybe should be done.
And ladies and gents, as you watch with me, there's 2 awesome videos, ladies and gents. Once again, credits to Roland Mara Unfiltered. And Roland Mara and I believe we have a lot in common, because I agree with him 100%. Put this spotlight on those people. Call their name out. Now bring the receipts and show them. I was make some notes over here. And I told before, ladies and gents, I'm going to say it again. Every time that I see my head down right here, doing the videos playing, because I'm listening, I make a couple notes so I can come back here with my 2 cents and give you something that I know. So another thing that a lot of people don't pay attention in the connection of the history of the past to nowadays, okay? And I say that because a lot of people forget about the beginning and the foundation of this country. As far as voting is concerned, ladies and gents, back in the days, only white men that owns property were eligible to vote. No poor white men, no women, no white women. What about back in the days, black people were slaves? All right? The time goes back home, and then they have this women's suffrage. And then one thing that they do not put in account was on that movement, that was the struggle of all black women in that movement. They did not recognize them. They were fighting because at the end of the day, on the spectrum of the bottom Always who's get the best is the white rich man, and comes the white woman, and comes the black man, and the black woman is on the bottom. And another thing too that a lot of people do not realize, that black people, especially black women, is on the tip of the spear, pushing through it and make a way for everybody else. And it benefits from the civil movement, all these benefits that end up trickle down to black people, also benefit other people, including, like was discussing on this panel, the white women on affirmative action. So, and then another thing that showed clearly on this past election is, regardless of everything that black people change, and like I say, even though we have great leaders like Malcolm X, Dr. Martin Luther King, and others that were in the front, beside them was the strength of black women that was also that pushing forward behind the scenes, beside them, and sometimes in the front, pushing everything to go through it. And because the black woman knows the struggle, of course, like any other ethnic group, you have the knuckleheads. You also know in the black community you have some knuckleheads and people that don't believe, but the majority of black women are down for the business. Sometimes, like I was raised by a single mother, and my mother was about the business. It was just her and I, and later on she ended up in a relationship. But in my early days, I saw my mama struggle. She has to work, she has to do what I need to do to take care of the house, to take care of myself, her son, that was me. There's a whole lot of black women out there that are doing everything they can do, and they are juggling, the kids, the house, the jobs, her emotions and everything else, but they get the job done. So that's why I say salute to these three ladies, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, and Congresswoman Summer Lee, because they are seeing the hypocrisy inside the Congress. How in the hell are you going to say the white men are going through depression? The whole society was designed to help white rich people. And another thing too that make a lot of white people make a mistake of it is because you are working class, and they're going to say, the people in charge, like Trump say, they say whatever they want to say to get your vote, to get you a place, to use you to put the place that they want to be. Because now they're in the position that they want to be, and they can care less about you. And like I say, wait until January when he finally swear in and get in the office. Because right now, even though he's supposed to be just minding his business and focus on his cabinet, he's already acting like he's the president. Until January, President Biden, for the end of November, for the whole month of December, and I believe until January the 20th, he's still the president. So he's the one that pulling his final moves. But Trump's already now on the host Truth Social and saying that like he's already in the White House. But a lot of people, I'm watching a lot of stuff that's going on social medias and YouTube. Now the farmers are hurting. Construction are hurting. Texas is going to get the business, because all constructions, all the farmers' workers are by immigrants, labor. And another thing too that's going to happen was on the local newspaper here in Florida, that they are already focused on Miami is the number one place for deportation. And guess what? All this Latino for Trump and all these Cuban people that think they are whites, they're about to have a wake-up call, and they're going to learn very, very, very soon what's about to come towards them. And like I was discussing on this panel too, the white women was the beneficial of the affirmative action. Another thing too, if people complain about or say, oh, food stamps and all that, it's the white people, that's the majority of our recipients of food stamps. Guess who's the number one on the charts? White people. And the Trump administration wants to wipe out all this social safety net benefits. I know somebody right now, she's black, and then somebody asked her about if she votes. I don't vote. I got my kids to take care of it, and I'm trying to make sure that I get some food stamps to supplement. I said, honey, you do not participate, you do not pay attention to what's going on, and guess what? Next year, honey, more likely, there's not going to be no food stamps. It's going to be a whole lot of people that's going to have a huge awakening. And especially the white working class and the poor white people. They're going to think about, oh my God. Because when it comes to the wealthy and rich people, that's what Trump cares about. Like I say, they don't have no money for reparation for black people for all those years of all this thing that was done to wipe white black people from to grow. Because do me a favor, ladies and gents, do a search. I have a podcast that was why I believe in my first or second year that talk about the black massacre in the United States. It's not on the YouTube video, but you can go to Spotify, and look all Apple Podcasts. You're going to see. Look to my beginnings of podcast. I believe on the first and second year, you're going to see a podcast related to the Black Massacre. Because they always complain about it. Oh, black people are lazy, they don't do anything. Every time, ladies and gents, that the black people get their place together and start developing with whatever the resources they have, that they create their own community, that community thrive. Wilmington, North Carolina, Tulsa, Oklahoma, St. Louis, and Florida, Rosewood, there's a movie about it, when the black community was thriving and not depending on anything about white people. The white people got jealous because you were thriving, and guess what? They attacked those communities, they burned to the ground, and they destroyed because of jealousy. So do your homework and learn about it. So don't tell black people about, oh, you guys are lazy now, because every time they'll try to do the best what you can do with what you have, you're going to thrive. But you guys got jealous because you guys don't believe in equality. Now this white people say, oh, you're being the depression or oppression or whatever they want to call, is because they do not believe in equality. They believe only privilege for themselves. Now, I'm not going to tell about, once again, I said this before, I'm going to say it again. It's not the white people that are racist. It's not. It is not. But there's a whole lot of people they are. And the majority of people on top, there was 1% population, that are wealthy people. They don't care about nothing else but their own privilege. So they do not want equality. Because if everybody has equality, if your family and my family start thriving, that means you just now cutting on their own privilege. Because now they want to understand, oh, I never struggled before, so that's what the struggles are. I don't like these. So let's eliminate everything, because you want our foie gras, you want our bottle of crystals, and want to eat lobster and travel the world in our yachts. You want all the privilege that you can, nobody else but us. And another thing too that happened, like I say, in these elections, well, because of some of the white women, they want to vote for Trump because they want to continue to live their life of privilege, of traveling, everything else. So my husband make all the money, so Trump is going to give them another tax cut. So why I'm going to compromise my life? My life is too good right now. I'm not going to compromise nothing else so somebody else can have a better life. My life is good, and I want to keep my life the way it is. And for those Latinos and black people that believe that they one day you're going to get to their level, it's not going to happen. As much as you try to assimilate and try to be like them, you will never be like them. You're a Latino, you're a Muslim, you're black, you're whatever. You're Asian, just like what's his name? One of the Indian guy, Matswamy, whatever his name is, that was running for president, he got a really weak because one of the voters told him, no, you're from India. You do not believe, he cannot vote for you. You're not like us. Where is Byron Donald right now? Nowhere to be found. And I believe that's another video that Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett said that he's part of the committee. He was nowhere to be found. He didn't even show up. Where's Senator Scott? They thought they were going to support Trump. Did they get any position on Trump's cabinet? Nothing but white men and a few white women. That's what's going to be. There's no diversity. There's no equality. Trump doesn't care. The Project 2025 doesn't care. That's the people that in charge and designed the Project 2025 are a bunch of white, sensitive, white, rich men that they believe that nobody else should have the privilege by themselves. So, ladies and gents, there's my 2 cents about it. Do your research and go learn, because there's a whole lot of things that has been done against black people. And at the end of the day, we used to go into fight. We're going to do everything to do, because at the end of the day, we are the one that opened doors for other minorities to receive the benefits too. But at the end of the day, when it's time to come to our side, you guys decide, let's be close by the white people to see if we're going to get anything. You're going to get jack. That's the only thing you're going to get. What I want to say, I can say that because I don't know if they're going to cut me or they're going to block this video. So I got to keep saying today. I'm not going to cuss today. All right, ladies and gents. So this is my 2 cents. Ladies and gents, this is a podcast and over. If you like the video that I played, if you like this video in general, ladies and gents, do me a favor. Click on the like button. Click on the subscribe button. Share this video with everybody that you know. Please be safe, be kind, and be blessed, and do the best what you can do with what you got. Salute. And I see you next Saturday. Holla!
pusher on the block, holding my down, sucker rappers get lost. Coming from the bottom, moving straight to the top.